What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Week 6 preview predictions continuing. This is the final one for the day. I'll have some more out for you tomorrow, but we're going to be previewing another big matchup in the SEC. We got the Kentucky Wildcats going on the road to face the number 1 team in the country in the Georgia Bulldogs, back-to-back national champions. And there have been some question marks about the way that Georgia has played in the past, and Kentucky, they seem to be rising up here in the SEC East. The top 20 showdown in Athens should be a fun one, but before we dive into it, as you guys know, I have some business I like to take care of first. I just want to thank you guys so much for the support the channel has seen as of late. It is absolutely unbelievable. If you want to continue to show your support and you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when videos get uploaded. But there are more ways than that to help me support my channel. You guys are doing one of them right now just by watching this video, and you guys can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you guys may be willing and are able to do to help me support my channel. But with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on in talking about college football. The number 1 team in the the number 1 team in the country in the Georgia Bulldogs seem to be kind of letting their grip of number 1 slip away. This is a Georgia team that hasn't really looked like their former selves here, the 2021 or 2022 versions here in 2023. I'll bring up a stat here that kind of solidifies that in a minute. Kentucky, however, getting a transfer quarterback in, really being able to build up the offensive line. Kentucky has looked pretty impressive so far throughout this season. As now we dive on into the statistics, with this game being in Athens, it makes the Kentucky Wildcats, who call Lexington, Kentucky home, the road team. We're going to start with them. And offensively, again, I just said it, they did get a new quarterback in this year in Devin Leary, former NC State Wolfpack quarterback, has been playing pretty solidly for Kentucky so far this year. Now, there are a couple of aspects of his game that I think a lot of Wildcat fans would like to see improve. 1,129 yards, 10 touchdowns, but he's only throwing at around a 57% completion rate. That can definitely rise up, and he has 5 interceptions so far this season. So you'd like to see him clean up the interception number there as well. The offensive line, however, while I'd still like to see a little bit more from them, I mean, so far they've done a pretty nice job. They've only allowed 4 sacks so far this season, under a sack allowed per game. That's a really good stat here. Kentucky's a lot better on the offensive line than they were last season. Third down is good. And talk about the play of Ray Davis. Absolutely exploded in that game against Florida. 76 carries, 594 yards, 7.8 yards per carry, and 8 touchdowns on the season for him. There are a couple other guys there behind him, but it starts with the Vanderbilt transfer, Ray Davis. It starts with Devin Leary, and possibly the best group of wide receivers that Kentucky has ever had. Moving on to the defensive side, though, again, you want to talk about the line of scrimmage. Kentucky is winning the line of scrimmage here. Offensively, only allowing 4 sacks, but then defensively as well. They've generated 11 sacks so far this year. That is 2.2 sacks per game. They have forced 8 turnovers, and they're only allowing teams to gain 77.5 yards on the ground, and that is per game. You got some phenomenal players there, especially in your linebacking unit. We're going to start here with your second leading tackler, Trevin Wallace, 3.5 sacks. He leads the team in that department, does have an interception there as well. You got some other guys there like Derek Jackson, J.J. Weaver, Keaton Wade, and so many other really good linebackers, some really good players on the defensive line, Deone Walker being one of those. But your leading tackler and your defensive backroom, while, there definitely are some things you can work on, especially by limiting what teams are able to do through the air. Maxwell Hairston has been really good. 33 tackles, 25 of them by himself, 3 interceptions, and 2 of those have been pick sixes as well, to go along with, again, the 8 turnovers that Kentucky has forced so far this year on the defensive end. So Kentucky really improved there on the line of scrimmage. And yes, for Kentucky, it hasn't really been pretty at times so far this year, but they really exploded. They were really able to get it done in that last game against Florida. Now we move on to the number 1 team in the country, at least as of right now, in the Georgia Bulldogs. Guys, this, yes, is not the Georgia team that we've known and loved over the past couple of years. However, I will say this. Remember last year when Georgia really kind of struggled to get by Kent State, and then they really kind of struggled there in that game against Missouri, kind of needed a late drive to go on. But ever since then, Georgia looked like the dominant team here. We're in kind of the same little area of the schedule where Georgia flips the switch and they turn things on. Carson Beck has still been very, very good as a Georgia quarterback, 1,497 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks, 72% completion percentage. He's throwing to the best tight end, probably one of the best pass catchers in general in the entire country, in Brock Bowers, 413 yards, 3 touchdowns for him so far this year. This is a rushing attack that, yes, albeit does not have the star power that it has had in previous years, but you look at guys like Daijun Edwards, you look at guys like Kendall Milton, who have still been pretty solid so far throughout the year, although this is a Georgia team only averaging 4.4 yards per carry. They're getting a lot more done through the air than on the ground. We're not really accustomed to see that from the Georgia Bulldogs. Only 4 sacks allowed on the year. Turnovers have been a bit of a problem, but they've been really good on third downs there as well. Now, when we move over to the defensive side, Georgia is still physical. Georgia is still filled with a ton of talent in every single level of this defense, and I could sit here and list names forever. This is a defensive backfield, especially that has 8 interceptions already on the year. Those are the 8 turnovers that the Georgia defense has forced. Really, really good on third down, but a couple things here about Georgia that make this maybe not necessarily a weaker unit, but definitely not as good of a unit as it was a season ago. They only have 8 sacks this year. That's only 1.6 sacks per game. Georgia's been able to get a lot more pressure to the quarterback in previous years. You're going to want to see that step up. And Georgia, I believe over the past 4 or 5 seasons, have been top 3 in the country in fewest yards allowed per carry. This year, they're sitting right around that 60 to 70 range. Yeesh, not typical of a Georgia defense at all. You want to see that improve there as well, which leads me into my what to watch for keys to the game, whatever you want to call it, just some things I think you should keep an eye on while you are paying attention to this one. We'll tell you where to watch it in a second, but we are going to start again with the road team, the 20th ranked Kentucky Wildcats. Devin Leary was not spectacular in the game against Florida. I believe he was only 9 of 19, 10 of 20, something like that there in that Florida game. He's got to hold on to the football here, meaning cut back on those interceptions. Don't fumble the ball. You cannot give takeaways to this Georgia defense because the Georgia offense has got some really good playmakers. It can go down there and score, but he also has to be spectacular. Look, quite frankly, guys, again, I said it earlier, he's got probably the best wide receiver room that Kentucky may possibly have ever had. Tavion Robinson, Berrien Brown, Dane Key, among many, many other guys. Ray Davis, a really good pass catcher out of the backfield as well. Talk more about him in a minute, but Devin Leary has got to be really, really good and limit those interceptions. And speaking of Ray Davis, he's going to need to make his mark as well. Now, he can't do it by himself. If you are going to try to game plan to beat Georgia just by running the football and have Ray Davis have a 280-yard, nearly 300-yard performance like he did last week, yeah, your chances here are not going to be that great. Again, this is still Georgia. They're still going to be physical. They're still going to push you back up front. So Davis needs to be able to leave his mark, but Devin Leary's got to find his groove, and he's got to get going as well and win the line of scrimmage, especially defensively for this team. If that defensive front there for Kentucky can create pressure on Carson Beck and get into the Georgia backfield, hey, it could be a pretty good day for Kentucky. They could go into Athens here and pull off the upset if they're able to win the line of scrimmage. Yes, it's important to win the line of scrimmage offensively too against some of the big boys and pass rushers that Georgia has, but defensively it is really, really important to cause Georgia to panic and cause Georgia some problems. Now, let's talk about the Georgia Bulldogs here. Their keys are a lot kind of more basic, I should say, than what the Kentucky Wildcats have to do. First off, Beck to Bowers has to be and will be on full display. And by that, I mean the connection from Carson Beck to Brock Bowers. Look, we really saw it there. We really saw it take effect and what that connection is able to do late in the game against Auburn last weekend, right? Where kind of for the first 3 quarters, Brock Bowers, I think, only had 1 or 2 catches, and then he really started to explode, put the team on his back, and look at what happened. Georgia had 2 quick scoring drives. They were able to take the lead there for good and be able to win that game. So Beck to Bowers, while, again, you're going to mix the run game in there, Beck to Bowers has got to be on point. It's got to find its mark early here in this game. Defensively, offensively, no matter any way you slice it, any way you slice it, be physical and get into the backfield. Okay, so there you go. That is a defensive key. But offensively, be physical, but defensively, be physical. Get that pass rush going a little bit more and get into the backfield. And Last week, I did say that, guys, look, Georgia is still Georgia. They're going to end up figuring things out. As it stands right now, Georgia is not the Georgia that we've known and loved over the past couple of weeks. However, what did I say, right? This is kind of the point in the season where you look back at last year, they really started to turn things on. They really started to become that dominant team in the country, right? They need to get back what made them special over the past couple of years. That was create pressure. That was be physical, and that was just create havoc everywhere across the field. Georgia has way too much talent to do that. I think Georgia's going to end up winning this game here, but oh boy, it might not be pretty here. It could be very similar to the Auburn game where Kentucky can walk in to Athens here, put up a good fight, and maybe even take the lead at one point in this game. But I think with Carson Beck, with Brock Powers, and just the sheer amount of raw physicality and talent that the Bulldogs possess on the defensive end, I think it will be a win for the Georgia Bulldogs. The number one team in the country likely will stay that way if they're able to get this one done. But I do like Kentucky to cover. I like them to keep this game a lot closer than people think and give the number one team in the country a scare. But physicality and Brock Bowers will take over. The Bulldogs will win this one in Athens. 7 o'clock game on ESPN. Should be a lot of fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hey guys, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.